progress. So it's 7:01 and we will open tonight's meeting of the Oakland Mills Community Association Village Board. So our first order of business would be to approve the minutes from our June 8th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion from Ginny. I have a second from Bill. Is there any discussion of the content of those minutes? All right, all in favor of approving? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 500, Amy. Okay, next is approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion from Warren. Jenny, you want me to take you as the second?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any discussion of tonight's agenda?
Can I add, I'd like to add an item to it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I have to get your approval to add it, I think, right? This is when I say that.
Yes, because you're proposing an amendment to the agenda. So
Yeah.
you propose the amendment and then we'll vote on the amended agenda.
I would like to propose to amend new business, although we have no new business, so make new business about the bike corral for July 4th that Warren and I have been working on.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of the, how much time do you need, Rebecca?
Oh,
An hour.
5 minutes.
Okay. All in favor of the meeting as, of the meeting agenda as amended?
Jonathan, you frozen.
I think I just froze.
Oh,
You
Yep.
froze. Nice night. It's June. It's 80
Yeah.
some degrees. Good night to freeze.
I can hear all of you, but I can't. All right,
hear
I'm
you.
seeing motion again.
yeah,
No.
you're moving again.
I'm moving. Okay, all in favor of approving as amended? 1, 2, 3, 4, 500. All right, let me just update my document that I work off of here, because by the time we get there, I will have forgotten we amended it, and then someone will have to yell at me. So after old business, we're going to do new business, and it's going to be the bike corral. All right. And that, yep, I spelled that right. It's not bike coral, it's bike corral.
I ask myself that every time I read it.
Me too.
All right, so now we're going to go on to resident remarks. If there are residents in the audience who would like to make remarks, you have up to 3 minutes. And if you're interested in making remarks tonight, please raise your hand using the Zoom controls, or turn on your video and raise your hand, and I'll call on you in the order that I see you. Going once, going twice. Okay, no remarks. All right, we will move on to old business. First item of old business is the vacant board seat update. And Sandy, I'm assuming you have that update since you're on the receiving end of all the statements of interest?
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
You don't want to do the new business first, Jonathan?
Oh, you know what? For some reason, I stuck that after the old business. I don't know why I did that.
Oh, because I said new business after the old business. I
Oh,
had it
maybe
wrong.
that, okay, see, so Rebecca put that thought into my head. No, let's just do the old business, then we'll do the new business. It doesn't
Okay,
matter.
So I have 2 letters of interest. The deadline is the 22nd, so that goes for another 5 hours. So tomorrow I will let the board know whether it's 2 or more letters of interest. So that's my update.
Okay. And if it ends up being the 2 that we have right now, then we won't need the subcommittee. We'll just schedule a session similar to what we did the last time with the 2 candidates, and have the board, do a meet and greet interview with the candidates in open meetings. So depending on schedules and what other business we have, we'll either schedule it as part of regular business, or we'll schedule a special session maybe immediately preceding.
Right, because
regular
next
board meeting.
meeting is the Board of Ed
13th.
one.
Yeah. Yes. So if we want to, well, and we should be able to do it by then, because that's 3 weeks from now, because there's a 5th Tuesday in June this year,
Okay,
right?
how sweet. Okay.
So you know,
Mhm.
maybe everyone check your calendars and see if you could do like a 6:30 thing that night as a pre-meeting to meet the potential new candidates prior to the board meeting itself, because then we can, you know, use this extra time we have to convene the subcommittee if it's necessary, because we'll know by tomorrow
Right.
morning whether we have a third candidate. That would give the subcommittee a good 3 weeks to get it down to 2, and then we could just deal with this at the next meeting.
Mhm. Because the one after that, Jonathan, you won't be there and I won't be there for starters.
Yeah. Yeah, what is that, July 27th?
20, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, that's it. That's my report.
okay, that was easy.
Yeah.
All right, next up is the Columbia Association priority list. And
I made it simple, like the one for the county. I feel like that's the way to go right now because no one wants to read all of our stuff anyway.
I mean, well, obviously I agree with that because I was the one who said, can we just simplify this into bullets?
Yeah.
So in case you haven't been able to bring up the attachment, the priority list that Sandy sent around was very short and sweet. Second sheet of ice at the ice rink in partnership with Howard County to create a state-of-the-art ice arena, promote the uniqueness of Columbia's villages and village events, and work with the State Highway Administration and Colonial Pipeline to design and build a pedestrian and bike path from Orchard Green Tot Lot along Route 108 to the light at Red Branch Road. Bill?
Yes, Jonathan, I have four possibilities to be added. I'll run through them. And the first one, I'm not sure whether it's been done or not, but we need to straighten out the funding between the village boards and CA, assessment share, et cetera. If that's already all been done to yours and Sandy's satisfaction now and going forward, great. If it hasn't, we need to get that straightened out with CA now and ongoing, because this year our budget process was a real pain because we didn't know what we were getting from CA, when they were going to make a decision on it, et cetera. So if that is anyway still up in the air, I feel that should be a key priority.
Well, can I ask a question on that? Sandy, I think in terms of the actual amount you've been getting, that, you know, the quarterly thing, that has not been an issue. That's been known. The issue is the cash reserves and how to handle that. And I believe the process was that the village managers, Jackie, our auditor, Susan, you know, our finance staff, have been getting together and trying to resolve that. We have different scenarios that could go into effect.
Yeah,
And
I can
talked
update
about
you.
some of them at our board meetings. So including one where you'd keep a percentage that would be used in the village for village,
Yeah, we
obvious
didn't,
CA property. So that is coming. I think the report will be coming pretty soon.
so I
But
can
it also,
update you.
but
The villages met twice. The managers met alone. And basically the consensus, and I reported back to Jonathan and Bill, was that each village that had sent something in to retain the cash reserve for FY '22 did not want to change that policy. We felt strongly that FY '21 and FY '21, keeping it for all this year, the year going into the next year is an anomaly. We don't know what will happen. And that the villages had sent letters to CA. Ours was dated like the second week in January, and everyone felt like, even after discussing it as a group and even after discussing it with Susan and Jackie, that they wanted to just go back to, we asked for this, we haven't changed our concern for what's going to happen, and that in Oakland Mills and many other villages, they wanted to be able to retain 100% of the cash reserve. So as a group, there was no other consensus, but each village wanted to stick with what they had already sent to CA. So that's where the village meetings left, and I think everyone had gone back to their chairs and vice chairs with that information. And actually, Jonathan and Bill I've sent them the letter again so that they had it for their reference. And as far as the assessment share, our management contract, I think, runs through FY '24. And that hasn't, that is a constant that, we will get an assessment share. It's not going to be lowered. There's a certain percent increase that they anticipate. So that won't change. And the next thing will happen is that probably in FY '23, they're going to have to look at the whole management contract. And I think at that point, they really have to seriously look at village funding, villages retaining funds, what CA's portion is. And I think that has to be pretty much almost a year-long discussion with the villages.
So here's here's what I think we can do with, because we're getting a little astray and into a lot of things.
That's the update of our
Here's-
meeting with
yeah.
CA.
Here's what I think we can do with what Bill is talking about, because I look at what Bill is talking about is that longer term, how do we lock in and make things more predictable? I think and Sandy, if you can do the edits, because I have a locked version of the document, I think we could add a bullet, saying that one of our priorities is that CA commit to a comprehensive, transparent partnership process with the villages to evaluate the management contract in fiscal '23 in preparation for the new management contract in fiscal '24.
That's good.
In other words, don't just hand us a contract and say, here, sign this.
Amy, I'll get that from the recording because I couldn't write it all down, but that sounds just right.
Yeah, very
Okay.
well stated, very well stated. Good. So then the
Yeah,
second,
I'm glad we're recording, because once I say these things, they're gone and I'm never going to get them back.
And I
So if
can't
you ask
write
me to
that
repeat
fast,
that
but
right
that
now,
sounded
forget it.
good. But that's where we are, Jenny, is that all the villages who had sent letters are sticking to that. We didn't come up with any other consensus or any other list of what we'd agreed to.
I think it was the Owen Brown chair that was suggesting the other thing. and
Yeah,
I
but
was-
as villages, there was nothing that we would agree to other than what we already had
Yeah.
decided as villages.
Well, Ginny, I had suggested that other thing about keeping some and reinvesting it, but that was for the next management contract.
Yeah,
That would
yeah.
be part of that process, not for right now.
Not now.
yes,
Right now, it's keeping the funds because we're heading into an unknown year.
Yeah, and the total, is this the total that I'm trying to recall that'll come to about 900 and close to $1 million?
I have no idea because each village, it's like when you lump it together, each village, some villages are going to end the year actually with no money to have even to give back. Oakland Mills has money to give back, but anticipates next year not having money. So when you lump it into a big number, it's really divided by 10, but then each village is having a different financial scenario.
Right.
Yeah, and Ginny, that's something to keep in mind, because I'm not sure that everyone is aware, because I was at a couple of those meetings with Andy and Milton when he was here, when they were talking about the villages in the aggregate. And of course, CA knows what's going on with each village. I don't know if there's an assumption, but if there is, it's not true. The villages don't see each other's financials. So when we hear from CA that the villages have this, we only know what Oakland Mills' portion is. We don't know what's going on in the 9 other villages.
So you don't see the chart that we do, which shows that the cash reserves in each village and it'll total close to $1 million?
No, well, that's after the fact. That's after all of our financials for the year have been put together. But for this year, for the cash reserve, I have no idea what any other village has finished up there last year. Those charts are put together after all the financials are done and approved and from all 10 villages and all, yeah.
Well, you have to, that's one of the reasons the process slowed down is you got to wait for the audit, right?
No, it's not an audit.
Well, I mean,
CA could have made, the board could have made this decision back in January based on helping the villages plan for the next fiscal year. Some villages were audited, but I sent our financials on May 5th. Or actually tonight. Yeah, you have to wait.
there were some that there were, what I had heard, but anyway, it doesn't matter, that there were problems and we couldn't really, they couldn't make a final decision based on waiting for the finals. Okay, let's not beat it to death. That's what we were hearing.
Okay.
But that information, I guess you're telling me, isn't public. It's just the board seeing that. We see the total picture from all the villages.
No, you get that. I mean, we don't have it for FY 2020 for this year, FY 21. No one has it, but you
Okay.
can see it for last quarter. You can
Okay,
see it
okay,
for
okay.
last year, for any past quarters.
Okay, the reason I think that other idea came up is it's how to explain it if we're don't have the financing to open some pools, and yet there could be, you know, close to 900 and some odd grand sitting in a all over the place. So it's just, we've got to, somebody may have to justify that at some point, is my concern. So,
Yeah.
okay,
It's just when you take that big number, if I was at a board meeting and not knowing anything, I'd be like, wow, the villages have $900,000. Some villages are ending the year with nothing. Some have a little money. No one's going to have, you know, a ton of money. And so you add it all together, it seems like this big pot we're just sitting on, and it's not. And
well,
any, you know,
it is actually a considerable pot. That, you know, and it's like, how do you justify that if other things are being cut? I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to say, how do you come up with a response to that? I hear what you're saying.
it's a rainy day fund.
Well,
Well, that I don't want to belabor this because that's not the point of this. We need to get back to Bill's stuff. But what I will say, that goes back to what I was saying. When it gets presented as an aggregate, it doesn't tell the story, because
You're frozen.
We've lost you, Jonathan.
Oakland Mills can.
Frozen.
You're frozen, Jonathan.
How about now?
Yeah,
We
okay.
got you now.
Gotcha.
Okay, I will stay inside here. So what I was saying is, when that number is presented in the aggregate, it certainly doesn't sound good. And that's, like I said, how Andy and Milton were presenting it, even when they talked to the villages. The problem is, you know, each village really needs to speak for itself, because, you know, when you talk about this pot of money, we're all independent associations. It's not a pot of money. It's what each village has, and some have different amounts than others, and we're very limited in what we can do with it. So I would actually appreciate it if CA didn't talk about it as if it's a pot of money, because it basically reduces the villages to one entity, and we're not. We're independent businesses. And I think that's where some of the problem comes in. You can't just dip into the $900,000 and use it for CA things, because it's not a pot you can dip into. It's 10 smaller pots, and some of those pots are completely empty. Some of them are larger than others. You know, Oakland Mills happens to have, you know, a good pot because we were conservative. Other villages don't have anything at all. So I think that's where we have to be careful when CA talks about the amount of money the villages are sitting on. We're not really the villages. We are 10 independent villages.
You're muted, Jenny.
Thanks, Sandy. Just a quick question, Sandy. Right now, I think it's 20% you keep of the cash excess, and then the rest goes back to CA to be used for. Right now, there's no specific thing. It could be made specific if we all wanted to.
Just go, yeah, right now it goes back.
Right, but I'm saying that could be one possible option. The other would be, is there some way, if some villages is just really, what you're implying, really doing well and making a lot, that adds up to that 999,000 or whatever it is, should there be a cap that, come on, enough's enough for a village?
Well, that's the fiscal 23 management contract discussion. So
Yeah, you're right.
Let's just put that as a priority item and move on to the rest of Bill's list. Sorry to cut you off, but I mean, that's exactly what we all need to be talking with, you know, each other and CA about for the next management contract, because the current one is what it is.
Well, this year too, because the current one is 20% and you're saying, let's ignore that and let's just let the villages keep the whole thing. So it's sort of part of this discussion too, for this year, right?
Well, it's not part of the priority discussion. This is the
no.
priorities for
Okay.
CA.
I keep turning myself off. Let's
Well,
move
in
on.
my report, we're doing the end of the year financial. I can talk more then.
Okay, my second one is CA performs a consultant-led community engagement to do a complete reevaluation of CA to determine CA's function, purpose, structure, and future.
Okay, we're gonna get it all on the recording because I can't write.
Okay. Then a third one is, and these two are local, but big priorities for us are the second floor restroom in the other barn.
Yeah, I have more to talk about that too.
Okay, good. And then the fourth one is CA Open Space to resume the pilot tot lot assessment program in Oka Mills.
Good.
Good ideas.
And that's it.
Okay, can I add something to that pilot tot lot assessment program? I would like to add, Bill,
Sure.
I want to see how you feel about this. Instead of saying resume, I would like to say something more along the lines of, I'm trying to think how to say this. Maybe in partnership with, basically, I want CA to come in and consult with us about what the next phase of that program should be rather than resuming, because I've heard from a number of residents who weren't happy with that so-called program because all they saw were cameras set up at tot lots at times that, you know, they knew the tot lots weren't going to be used because they felt it was just going to create the self-fulfilling prophecy that the tot lots aren't used so we can get rid of tot lots. So a lot of residents did not like just seeing those cameras at the tot lots and nothing else being done. So I think we need to have a discussion about what the resumption is rather than just resume doing what they were doing.
I can answer that. No, all right, put it that way. And then, yeah, that is the plan. And I think Dennis and whoever else was presenting at our board meeting, oh God, was it 2 years ago?
Yes.
I thought tried to make it clear that this is a partnership and that the next steps, now that the analysis has been done, I believe, of every tot lot in Oakland Mills, that would be a partnership with the board about, okay, what can you do? Because some are in areas where you can expand even though people want it, the swampland or whatever, you know. So there would be definitely a partnership about what should happen next. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's stated that way in the priorities, because I don't want
Agreed.
residents' reaction to seeing resume to be, oh, so they're just saying take pictures and close them down.
No, I agree, because that if they had listened to that presentation, they shouldn't have reached that conclusion. But yeah, I agree.
Yep. Good wordsmithing, Jonathan.
Amy, you got that? Okay.
All right, Warren, did you have something?
Yes, about the ice rink. I know that I think the plan, I've talked to Bill about it, is to actually put the second ice rink where the tennis courts are. I know that's heavily used, and I know lots of people use it for pickleball and tennis, and that does draw people into our village. I'm wondering if there's a plan to replace that somewhere else if we're going to build an ice rink. I'd be in favor of it, but I really think we need a plan to support the tennis and pickleball community as well.
There's, to that point, it's no place right there in the village center that I'm aware of that CA owns enough land to do that. CA does own open space next to Walgreens, if I'm not mistaken, although probably most of that's probably wooded, but that would be one place in the village that potentially couple courts could be built there. That'd be take a fair amount of money. Of course, the exotic way to do it, but maybe a downside would be if you put a second sheet in where the tennis courts are now, on the roof, put tennis courts and pickleball up on the roof. And that's exotic. There's security issues, et cetera, but it saves space and you don't expand your footprint. But I understand that, and there are a lot of folks who use that. I use those courts a lot myself, even fixed the net there last year so people can play. And periodically I stop by and say hi to the folks using it. I understand that. It's that probably we get more people using the second sheet than use the courts, but I get it and understand. I love those courts.
So I have a suggestion, since these are just priorities we're talking about. It's not, we're not in a position to make the plans for this. We're just saying we want a second sheet of ice. We want an upgraded ice rink. They can put a second level on for all we care. They can find different ways of doing it. I think we just stick with that. And if this thing starts to become a reality, that's where the planning comes in. And that's where we start saying, okay, if you're going to expand outward, then your expansion should not eliminate other recreational opportunities in Oakland Mills, meaning find another place for the tennis courts if you're going to take those tennis courts. But I think at this point, this is just a succinct priority, fix up the ice rink and give us more ice rink capacity. One of the ideas, yes, has been to build on the back, but that's not what we're saying here. We're just saying we want some commitment that we're going to, find a way of expanding the ice rink right now, and then we can work on the details if that becomes reality. Because right now, it's, CA's non-board leadership has looked for every excuse not even to try. So I'm not so worried about whether it gets built up, out, to the side, wherever. Right now, I just want CA to say, yeah, this seems worth looking at. Howard County only has one sheet of ice. That seems a bit lacking for a county this size.
And CA could decide, hey, we'll build a second sheet in Oakland Mills. It'll be a new building next to Walgreens. Okay, and you have two rings separated. That's another way to do things. But I think, Jonathan, you're right. Just generic, we'd like the second sheet of ice because the demand is there, and that's a priority. Yeah, good point.
Actually, guys, we should take a look at what that open space is next to Walgreens. I'm going to look into that.
Right. Lynn has a hand up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about if the one of the reasons or the demand for having a second sheet of ice is that it would attract tournaments, including, not just Maryland tournaments, but also out of state tournaments, or I don't know if you call it a tournament when it's ice, but at any rate, that we're already getting so much concern from our residents about the extra traffic that comes when we have tournaments at Blandare Park. And so how are we going to answer those concerns if we're going to start, pushing to have regional tournaments in our village center? Has anybody thought of that? Or I guess that's another one of the things
but
figure it out.
the high school and middle school are always used as event parking. So, I mean, there's big parking lots around.
Yeah, right. And
But I haven't thought of it.
about it. So just, I guess that's something that if they take it on, they can figure that out if that's
Yeah, it's more like what Jonathan said with where it is.
Right. But also, I'm just wondering, do we know that there really is throughout Oakland Mills real support for this, or is this something that we've just decided? Just a question.
Well, I mean, I haven't polled Oakland Mills. We've certainly not heard opposition as many times as we've put this in budget testimony and everything. So I don't know if there's overwhelming support, but I feel, fairly confident there's not overwhelming opposition, because no one, we always put out our budget testimony and everything, and no one comes back and says, what the heck are you thinking? Here's my concern. I do think someday Howard County will get a second sheet of ice. I've been at the Capitol budget testimonies, and there are other people out there saying we need another ice rink, and they just want the county to build it out west or something. And my concern is if CA and the county don't do something eventually in Oakland Mills, someone's going to build that better facility, and then that's the end of what we have.
That's an excellent point, Jonathan. Competition. Yeah, that's a good point.
You're absolutely right. And actually, there was another sheet. I'm trying to think. Well, there's 4 down in Bowie area, and another one in Anne Arundel was added. So it's happening around us. That's been my concern, that the groups, the Howard Huskies and the Columbia figure skating groups that are primarily using that, as well as it's available for other lessons and figure skating, I mean, and you know, just open to the public. But those are major groups, and they've been getting disgusted with that, not having a second rink for a long, long time. So, and they're already going to these other facilities and spending a fortune. You know that, you met with them. Some of you guys met with the Howard Huskies, and I met with the Columbia figure skaters as well. So it's an issue where if somebody opens another one in Ellicott City or western part of the county, forget about it.
Well, and for me, it's also not so much about attracting big tournaments, you know, because even a second sheet of ice, I mean, if it doesn't have, you know, there's only so much land, so I don't know if it would have seating capacity and everything else. But as it stands right now, and this goes a few years back, so I'm sure the cost have gone up. But you know, our Howard County groups who call the ice rink home, they were actually spending more time and a lot of money, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to rent ice outside of Columbia and obviously Howard County, because there is no other ice in Howard County. So they were spending more time and more dollars outside than they were spending here.
Right.
So, you know, there's definitely a need, I think, in Howard County. And the way I look at it is, if Oakland Mills has always been the ice venue for Howard County, I'd like to keep it that way. You know, I don't want to give that up to something that gets built out west somewhere down the line, because we've already seen the effects of lack of investment in some of the capital assets we have here in Oakland Mills. So I'd like to see us reverse that and, you know, keep something here and fix it up rather than risk losing it down the line, because I think someday it's going to happen. I mean, you know, there's money out there to do it. It's just a matter of time. You know, eventually enough of these people are going to do all the math and realize how much they're spending year after year after year to rent ice out of the county, and say, you know what, if we can get some land deal or something, we can get this thing financed and build it, and it'll be worth our while. And it's not going to, it won't be here because CA owns the one we have here.
Yeah, I just did a quick acreage check. The tennis court plus the ice rink plus the CA parking lot in front of the ice rink is 2.12 acres total. The wooded lot next to Walgreens is 2.23 acres. Okay, so if CA didn't want to put the second sheet behind the existing one, there is a prime real estate right now on 175 in Thunder Hill where they could put it, and you could put a lot of your tournaments there, and your heavy traffic stays there. It's still in Oakland Mills, and Oakland Mills becomes the ice rink capital of the county. But
Bill,
somebody will do it sooner or later.
Bill, the property, CA property near Walgreens, is that adjacent to or across the street there?
Next to it, right next to it, butts right up against it.
Between the funeral home and Walgreens?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yep, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
Is there any stream there or anything?
No, no
Yeah.
stream. A topography map, it'll take me a little bit of contours. Let's see what I get.
All right,
here.
wait a minute. We're going out of scope again. All we care about
Okay.
for the priorities right now is, do we still want a second sheet of ice?
Yes, I do, because the demand is there. And somebody, if we don't do it, somebody else will eventually.
You know, this doesn't solve Lynn's concern about traffic, because we are, as one owner of the shopping center said, at a dead end. And that's been a problem with the consultants in terms of where we're located, no question about it. But the Howard Husky guys said, and Jonathan, you alluded to this, that you can build a sheet on top of another sheet. I
Mhm.
don't know how you do it, but
Can you
But
remember, Luke?
again, I think we would be short-sighted to assume everything stays static, right? I mean, part of a CA Howard County partnership to do an expanded ice rink could also include other infrastructure improvements. You know, theoretically, there should be a third interchange. You know, theoretically, there could be other access points to Oakland Mills in the future. You know, there's so many other things that may change. Blandair Park is supposed to have, you know, its own interchange across 175, you know, to cross between north and south. So, you know, some of that traffic that might be coming in now may not exist years from now because the access points are going to be different. So I think what I'm saying is I think we're getting hung up on the details of something that's not even happening yet. And right now we need to decide whether we want something like that to happen in the grand scheme of things. And then if someone says, yes, we think we can make that happen, well, that's when you start doing the planning. That's when you start working on the details. Right now we're working on the details of something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I agree. Just go for that second rink. And the reason we do it is if we don't go for it, we'll be out of business at some point because something bigger and better we built elsewhere, and the Huskies, et cetera, they'll go there.
Okay, moving on. You there, Jonathan? Is he frozen?
Yeah, I think he's frozen.
Bill, do you want to move on? You're the next in chief.
Yep.
Other items? I'm here. Did I freeze again?
Yeah, you frozen.
Yeah.
Jonathan, Scotty is doing a bad job of beaming you in here today.
I don't know what's going on here tonight. I worked all day and had no problems. I'm literally sitting right across from the router now. I don't know what's happening.
that's okay. You thought out again.
Yeah, okay. I thought it out. All right.
Uh,
Was there anything else on the priority list?
I'm sorry, the bathrooms are on there again, right?
Yes,
Okay.
we've added the transparent, comprehensive process about the villages for the next management contract. The consultant-led thing that Bill talked about. Amy, I'll get that from all the minutes. The second floor restroom and the what will the resumption of the tot lot study look like, and what are the next steps, basically. Okay. So I'll type that up again and send it around.
Any electric charges or anything like that that you have?
No, we
areas?
have one.
I know, but I mean, is that,
Oh, I think that's a good idea because a few people have mentioned that lately.
But in what respect to Oakland Mills?
Having more chargers in the village center parking lot.
And that's not CA, but.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it is. You could stick one at the ice rink or stick one in
Oh,
the
right,
police
right,
trailer
right.
lot,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
or maybe put one at each neighborhood center.
Uh-huh.
By the way, Cedar hasn't gotten back to me. I did inquire with Cedar about adding electric chargers in their lot, and the response was kind of, oh, intriguing. Let us get back to you. That was like 4 weeks ago.
in about 100 years, right?
Yeah. All right. Anything else? All right. New business. Rebecca, bike corral.
Yeah, so at our last meeting, the Pattersons, Patrick and Bronlyn, right? I think that was just at the last meeting. It feels like a lifetime ago at this
Mhm.
point. Suggested that we pursue having some kind of bike corral down at the waterfront for fireworks. I think they were thinking a little more ad hoc of just people showing up and making it a bike parking area, but we started running with it. I think both Warren and I, our eyebrows perked up and said, oh yeah. And so we've kind of made a little group that has done a lot of legwork so far. We've secured a space down at the waterfront in the parking lot next to the Haven. it's CA land, but Howard County has control over it for the fireworks. And so they're giving us a corner of the parking lot where we'll set up fencing and bike racks. And it'll be like a coat check. So you can bike over from Oakland Mills. Well, we're also working with Kevin from Wild Lake because they also have a lit bike path that goes all the way from their village center to downtown. So the lighting on the path is pretty key since it'll be dark, presumably when the fireworks are over. So anyway, so you can bike down and coat check your bike where we'll have volunteers kind of as security watching over it. And then you can, pick it up when you're ready to go. So that way there's not a billion bikes all locked up to random things down at the lakefront and people have a little more security. So we're pretty excited and there's a lot of enthusiasm and excitement about it. And we're jumping through the hurdles, but we have very short time frame to do it, obviously. So the thing that seems to be an issue at the moment is getting enough bike racks. And we're pursuing a lot of different avenues. We were trying to do this all with donations, and it still might work out that way. But because the time is so short right now, for the bike racks, we need about $320 to rent bike racks. That's kind of the fallback option. If we're trying to get some from various bike places, we can get some from here and there and cobble it together. But as the last resort, we can just rent them for money from a company that puts on triathlons, and they have a bunch of racks. So I guess I needed to ask the board, is there funding? Can we put money towards something like that? As a last resort, we're going to work with Wild Lake, like I said, so Kevin can ask his board for some money too. So we only need 320 total, but so if some of it comes from Oakland Mills, hopefully some from Wild Lake, potentially I'll ask the county what they can do for us also. So like I said, we're pursuing other avenues, so I'm not sure if we would actually need all 320 from Oakland Mills. But that would be what we need right now so that we can know that we can continue pursuing this. Because if we don't have bike racks by the end of the week, then we have to call it all off. I think, Warren, did I say that clearly?
You did. That was very well stated.
Good.
So I don't have this year's budget in front of me, but Sandy, what is our events line item? Do you happen to know what we have in our events line item?
I can look it up. It was very bare bones. Not planning on the bike rack thing. I'm looking it up right now. And that includes all of our events like that we have. So it's not broken down by event, but it's about it's revenue and expenses. So the expense is, so it's money that we spend
Right.
for special events, which is $6,000. But I said it's not broken down. It's based on the events we've had in the past and how much we've basically spent on different.
No, I'm just thinking that probably the only quick way we could potentially do this without going through, the process of modifying our budget, which is
No, we can't do it for one event.
Well, you didn't let me finish.
Oh.
I was going to say, we can't. I mean, we can't modify our budget without notice to the community or anything. So we couldn't do that tonight. And of course, the next meeting will be too late. So my thought is the thing we could do is, given that we do have an events line item, if we consider this an Oakland Mills sponsored event, then we could use some of that, budgeted expense toward events toward this. I just don't know, how much of that 6,000 you had in your mind for the other events we'll have during the year. But if you kind of threw 6,000 in there thinking we're going to do a few things, but you didn't have exact amounts for any of them, then, we could pluck some money out of the events line item.
I don't have it right now. I mean, I wasn't prepared to give a breakdown. It's not broken down in there, but I mean, I would think $160, if, as a shared thing, isn't going to break our events budget.
I think Lynn has her hand raised.
Yeah, are you, I think the idea of having a bike corral is a really good one, but I'm wondering how this will promote Oakland Mills. Will there be signage around saying that this is an Oakland Mills Wild Lake sponsored service, or how are you going to handle that?
Sure. So first, it's going to benefit Oakland Mills residents, right? Because we can actually use the bike corral. So whoever from Oakland Mills that already lives here, we're going to advertise it such that you can park in the village center and hopefully support the businesses there in the village center. So park your car there, grab your pizza, and bike on downtown. We're also totally willing to sell our souls for advertising. So we can put, big signs up at the event, saying that, like you said, Oakland Mills and Wild Lake sponsored event.
I don't have a hand to raise, but I have a question.
You have a
Don't
hand
let
to
her
clap,
bark
it looks
me.
Yeah,
like.
you're clapping.
I know, it doesn't give me the option, but I would not want, I would rather give money, but not say it's an Oakland Mills sponsored event because of liability. Because as much as you're saying that it's volunteer security, if something happens to a bike, I don't want to tie Oakland Mills to it in any way. And I also think that there should be some disclaimer on a coat check thing when someone leaves their bike, that they are, there is no accountability for any bikes that are stolen or lost. But I don't think we should tie Oakland Mills' name to any of that. I think rather, if the board wants to help fund it, to support it, because we do, and it'll help our village that night and all the residents, but not that we're sponsoring it in any way.
Great point, Sandy. I
Well,
never thought of that.
I mean, yeah, but I think, as Rebecca said, I think we can still tie Oakland Mills to it, right? We can promote it. We can say, come to Oakland Mills, visit our village center, pick up dinner, and bike your way over, and look for the bike corral.
Exactly.
And we don't have to say it's the Oakland Mills bike corral, but we can insert Oakland Mills into the conversation in other ways, so that it not only benefits our residents who want to bike over, but also benefits our community by maybe drawing new people into our village center.
Right. I just think I think it's kind of important that there be some kind of, aside from, we get to leave our bikes there, some of us who want to do that it's something that benefits the village as a whole.
And
yeah,
I do have a
started
question.
That in the e-news.
Yeah, and I do have that question in, Jenny forwarded the question to CA for me about who has the liability in this case, since it's Howard Hughes property. CA has control over it currently. Howard County is running the event, so they have temporary control over it. And we're a random group of volunteers. So hopefully we're concerned about the liability issue also. But hopefully not Oakland Mills concern.
I mean, honestly, again, we're kind of going astray of what the actual business was, but we seem to like to do that tonight. But if I can throw my 2 cents in on that, I mean, I don't see why it's not just provided as a use at your own risk amenity. Just like the schools have bike racks, other facilities have bike racks, and no one expects them to watch over your bike and protect it. You put your bike there, hopefully you lock it up, and then you assume the risk when you walk away from that bike and leave it on the bike rack. I don't know why this would be any different.
I think that's not really the way, like at marathons, it really is. There's an assumption that your bike is secure. It's not just that you're taking the risk yourself. So I think there is an assumption if you provide a corral that's being monitored by volunteers.
Yeah, I think there is an assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an open corral where you just go stick your bike in. It's more like coat check, like you deliver your bike to the door and we will go hang it on a rack and
watch it, presumably.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not give it to anybody who.
I'm sorry. I forgot the coat check part. You did mention the coat check.
We're going to have tickets and, tag the bike, and somebody takes the one ticket back, the owner takes the ticket and has to use it to bring it back. So there is some implied control.
Okay. Well, so the point of all this, Rebecca, you said 5 minutes. You should know better than to think anything around here.
David and Ginny have their hands up too.
No, so the point of all this was to determine whether, we wanted to use some funds to perhaps cover some of the, the outstanding balance. And like as Sandy said, it wouldn't kill us to throw $160 or so at it if Wild Lake wants to meet us halfway, assuming it's even needed. My idea was this is an event. We have an events line item, so we don't really have to modify the budget to do this. I mean, does anyone object to that? To throwing like $160 at this if it's needed?
He has a hand up,
Ginny?
David.
Whoops, I'm just trying to lower my hand. I don't object. I wonder if, I'm concerned about the timeline here, and what I heard Rebecca say is that she really has to know right away so that they can put the order in or forget about it. So I guess I'm wondering if the board could consider the full 320 with the understanding that this group is going to approach, and Kevin's very involved from Wild Lake, and make it clear, hey, come on now, how about you chip in 160? So then ours will be 160. And maybe even the county would chip in something. I doubt it, but they're going to approach the county as well to see. And CA, so that's what that one issue. I'll go on to the other stuff with CA at some point. But yeah, I'm worried that if we just give 160 and in fact, they don't get anything from Wild Lake, and of course, Jonathan, you can embarrass Kevin and make sure that occurs, but that they do get it. But, it's like, she can't come back to the board and say, please make it 320.
It looks like
If you could do
Wild
it-
Lake's next meeting isn't until after 4th of July, July 12th. So that's a concern.
Can't Kevin send something out to the members of his board prior to the meeting, just as we do? I think I'd feel better knowing that there was other support, that we weren't agreeing to just sort of open the purse strings here.
I can definitely ask him.
So what if we said that we will, if needed, we would commit to 160 now, with the provision that Rebecca could come back to us via email, if there's additional balance due. I also agree, while I certainly support the activity, if it truly is a joint venture, then it should also be funded as a joint venture. So I don't necessarily want to say right now, in open meeting on the record, yeah, Oakland Mills will just cover the whole thing if no one else wants to, because then everyone else can go, well, Oakland Mills already said they'd cover the whole thing. So why bother?
Mhm. I'm fine with that. And like I said, we're working on other avenues. We're really trying to get donations of racks and stuff too. So it might not be needed at all, or much less might be needed if we can, get half of the racks provided for free.
Yeah, because it sounded like there was, some hope that even the 320, wouldn't be the amount needed. So, I mean, if everyone's comfortable with saying yes, if Rebecca comes back to Sandy and says, I need a check for half that amount, we're good with 160, then I think we're good to go, at least for tonight.
So you're saying we're good at 160, and if they needed more, right? Is that what you said, Jonathan?
No,
Yeah.
I'm saying we will commit to 160 now.
Right.
And,
right.
or I
Then
guess
I'll
I should
have
say,
to come back.
I guess I should say up to 160. And then, if Rebecca has to come back, that would have to be another, I guess, virtual conversation.
Okay.
And when you say virtual, you mean like emails as
Yeah.
opposed to this kind of virtual.
Right. Is that good?
I appreciate it, guys. I like all the support.
Okay, great.
Great job, Rebecca, Warren.
All right, board chair report. So I'm going to do education separately tonight. Board chair, I don't have any news directly from Cedar on goings on at the Village Center. However, from just my walking around and peeking in windows, it looks like progress on the salon has resumed. They had people working in there last week, and actually the paper is off the window, so you can look in there and see that they're putting in a new drop ceiling, and they have a tile floor, and they're setting up like the salon booths. So it looks like that is proceeding again. There was also activity in the form of Venaris. They were actually moving some old equipment out. So I guess there's new equipment going in there, because remember, that is supposed to be opening by the end of July, the pizza place to replace the pizza place between the other two pizza places. And of course, no official news yet on Second Chance when it comes to the Village Center. I also just wanted to give a shout out. He's not here tonight, but I raised the issue of cars kind of being abandoned on the streets of Oakland Mills when we had the meet and greet with our new community officer. I'm happy to report that he took care of those like instantly. So,
Really?
you know,
Wow.
even though he's not here, sending my appreciation out for that. Yeah. There were just several cars out and about just here in the Stevens Forest and Talbot Springs areas where you could tell, because not only were the tags expired, but they were just like covered in tree gook, and the tires were low, and you could tell the street sweeper has gone around them about 70 times. So yeah, I took pictures, gave him locations, and he got right on it and started taking care of things.
Was that
Are they
Officer?
gone?
Hmm?
Are
Was
they
that Officer
gone?
DeBronzo?
You're both talking at the same time, so try one more time, but one
Yeah,
of you.
is that Officer DeBronzo? I just need to know for the.
Yes, Officer DeBronzo, yes. Okay, Sandy, what were you asking now?
Are the cars gone or just ticketed or what?
I need to go around and look. His last update, he was working on them. He was getting in contact with the owners. There is one on Owen Brown Road that I know is gone. There's one on Stevens Forest Road that I know is gone. And there's a third one that I haven't walked around and checked on yet, but he was in contact with the owner.
Great. That's great.
All right. And unless there are any questions for me, that's all I have for board chair. I'll come back again as education chair in a little while. All right, Ginny.
Oh, thanks, Jonathan. Just a couple of updates on CA. We've gotten a large number of inquiries about, in fact, 300 customer interactions about different issues with CA. So also Open Space initiated a climate vulnerability assessment to determine future risks posed by climate change on CA's assets and community, and to identify possible mitigation strategies for planning purposes. This is part of the Climate Committee, and the project is in Wild Lake. We selected that area where the Yards Alive is Oakland Mills as the pilot. Sports and fitness saw 855 new memberships sold as compared to a 5 years ago, FY 16 through 20, average of 560. And we opened 15 pools, which saw over 6,800 visits the first weekend. Mask requirements of CA will be changing as of June 26 to reflect CDC policy. They had already changed a little bit, but that will be, final. CA is partnering to host COVID-19 vaccine clinics on June 17th at Swansfield Pool and the ice rink on June 26th. And monthly outdoor community yoga classes at the Chrysalis we'll be having. School age service and Columbia Arts Center will be managing CA camps this summer, start June 21st. Monthly, and the Youth and Teen Center, I know there were a lot of questions on that in the past, will reopen and resume operations June 28th. Dave Smith Communications is rolling out a new website theme to replace the Our Commitment message, which with a new Summer in Columbia theme. So I'd be interested in getting feedback on what you think of that, Dave, and others. CA board is looking at, excuse me, 4 possible priorities and I'm not going to go over how we're going to approach this, but we'll be talking about more at the board meeting Thursday. But one priority is community engagement and how we can enhance that, what target audience, et cetera. The second one is Symphony Woods, and I could spell out a few things there if anybody's interested more in detail. Howard County General Plan and update and how we interact with that is the third one. And CA President, CA evaluation is the fourth one, and we should be finished with that one in July. And then be setting priorities for the CA President. So if there's one, if you want to hear a little bit more on how we're going to go about Symphony Woods, or at least suggest a draft, I'd be happy to spell that out a little bit more right now if you want. Okay. That's about it.
Ginny, I have an observation on the pools, and take it for what it's worth, because I'm no expert, and this is just one observation, but I have to point it out. I haven't been up to Thunder Hill Pool yet this season. I've only been to Stevens Forest a few times. But the first couple of times I was there, I noticed that at all times during recreation swim, they still have half the pool sectioned off for lap lanes. So Stevens Forest Pool basically has 8 of those black lines. 4 of them are always lap lanes. The rest of the pool is recreational swim. I kind of noticed an imbalance between the number of people in the recreational area and the number of people using the lap lanes. So when I was last up there Friday, late afternoon, early evening, I kind of walked around the pool and did a count. So half the pool is lap lanes. That means 4 lap lanes. You can double up. So you could probably get about 8 people in the lap lanes. At no time when I was there for a couple of hours were there more than 3 people swimming laps, which means 1 lap lane wasn't even needed, even if you don't double up. Meanwhile, in the recreational side of the pool, I counted 40 people. So, you have 50% of the pool for 3 people, 50% of the pool for 40 people. And I'm just wondering why they're not altering the number of lap lanes based on the relative demand of lap swimmers and recreational swimmers over the course of the day. Because of course, the recreational swimmers are also, a good proportion of them are kids, and they're also younger kids who are not vaccinated yet. So you're forcing them into closer proximity with each other when they don't necessarily need to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what I would like to know is why the manager perhaps isn't using good judgment and being flexible. If you have, and I think we've eliminated registration now. I know that was Rebecca's concern. I think we've done away with registration. So, but if you find from 5 to 6, you only have 2 or 3 lanes for lap swimming, why can't you move that, open up another lane for the rec? Just do it. It's based on each pool. You just do it at that time. The manager just tells the lifeguard, do it. So
yeah, and like I said, I don't want to make a big deal of it. I think it's
it's
something
really
worth
good
looking
point.
at, because I don't know what flexibility the managers have. I don't know what it takes to roll those lane markers in and out, every time they want to reconfigure the pool.
Not that
But it just
That's
seemed
all.
odd to me to see 40 people crammed in half the pool and then 3 people in the other half of the pool,
Yeah,
for
no,
for the couple of hours I was there.
Right.
And for all I know, there were like 30 people who wanted to swim laps an hour before I got there, but I can only tell you what I saw for the couple of hours I was there, when it was, fairly crowded, but on the rec side, not on the lap side.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point and observation. And I will bring it up right away tomorrow with Dan Burns and Lakey, and ask, are you got to be observing this too? We should be. And why aren't we doing something about it? It could be we got to close that lane after another hour or something, because we suddenly wind up with 8 lap swimmers, but you can be flexible, and it's not difficult to move it. It happens in water aerobics all the time. You just take one end, you tie it to the other end, you got an open lane. So thanks. No, I'm
Okay.
disappointed that they're not doing that, and I want to know why. So thank you. And the 2 other pools, we're just trying to get all the lifeguards and a manager and assistant managers. That's our biggest problem. We've got the money now for those other 2 pools, Dasher Green and Faulkner Ridge. So every village will have at least, those that have more than 2 pools will have 2 pools open. Those that don't have any or have only one, they have 100%
Mhm.
open. So, but I don't know how much, how many more we can get open. That's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay. Oh, I think Lynn has a question for you.
Yeah, this is a non-pool question. This is on something else. A couple of months ago, I guess it was, we had a presentation by Nina Basu about what was going on with the Meriwether Park. And I'm wondering if you have any update on that.
Yeah, I can get you the exact wording of a settlement where the county admitted that we were correct in terms of they were incorrect, let me put it that way, in saying that a permit wasn't needed for Symphony of Lights the last time. So we got a settlement on that one. But what we're trying to do, there's still the other lawsuit in terms of not just that issue, but in general, the easements, who controls the easements, et cetera.
Right, but I wasn't talking about any of the litigation. I was talking about the beautiful plans that we saw for the park.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a path going in and there's some other grants. I'd have to get you the exact amount, but that they've gotten. And that they will be working on the stream erosion. Is that the part you're talking about?
Yeah. Also, there was a really nice sort of passive park, the things that kids could do that didn't require playground equipment, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Really exciting. The environmental components of the park look really exciting to me.
Yeah, Nina, I don't know how well you know her, but I am very impressed with her, and she is doing her best to keep this moving, as is CA, working together in a partnership. I think it really is a good partnership.
Yeah,
with
I was so impressed with the presentation. Very excited.
Our board, actually, I appreciated our boards, and you spoke out at that meeting when Nina was there, of how supportive our board was of this project. You guys were great. So it is moving along the path. The use of the restrooms, we finally got, as Nina put it, the long-awaited joint use restrooms are now open. That was unbelievable controversy. And when can we being the Inner Arbor Trust and, CA, be able to use those restrooms, which was insane. Especially if you had people that were handicapped, et cetera. But that's been resolved. Let's see, Trust and Howard Echo Works are working closely with CA staff to coordinate and install 12,000 square feet of conservation landscaping this summer.
Okay, great.
So yeah, it's moving. If you're asking, it's moving. And I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but what our priority is, though, and our vision for Symphony Woods is to clarify the CA/IAT relationship, define control over Symphony Woods, the development, the maintenance, the programming, and the access. And you know why this is important in terms of stewardship for CA's land, protect residents, public use access, avoid future lawsuits. And how will we, measure success, completed agreements between CA and the IAT. That is really important. I think we may be close to accomplishing that this year. That has not been true in the past with the IAT, but I think we can accomplish that. So this is a big priority. Clearly defined structure, formal relationship between CA and IAT. What do they do and what should we be doing as CA as an organization? Because there are some things they cannot really do and do well. Maintenance is one of them. Defending against trespassing is another one. Lawsuits, they don't have deep pockets to be doing that. And yet both of those are their responsibilities under the contract. Personally, I don't think that's at all workable or fair to the IAT. Programming is their strength. And they're very good at that. And if you take a look on their website about all the free programming and other programming that they have arranged for, it's very diverse. They're doing, I think, a phenomenal job. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I think they are. So that's, you're going to see hopefully a lot of movement in this. CA board is taking that area as very seriously, and it is a top priority.
Thank you.
And you know what I guess I was going to suggest is, and maybe we got to see if Nina is having somebody update their website so that you can look at it whenever you feel like it and see what the progress is.
That would be good, because I have been looking and haven't really seen anything.
Okay, I'll just send her a note on that and just see what the problem is. Okay.
Great, thank you.
No, thank you for your responses at that meeting.
All right. Thank you, Ginny.
Thank you,
Sandy?
John.
Sandy, you're muted.
Who do I send the priority list to, Ginny? Is that going to the whole board? No, you're muted.
You'll take turns here. Send it to Lakey, CC the board,
Okay,
and I'll get it that way.
okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So I have, Jonathan, can you share the screen or you want me to? The year-end financials?
I cannot share the screen right now. It
Okay,
says it's disabled.
well, because then it make you a co-host. I'm not good at this. Hold on. I don't know why when I pull up my documents here. Okay, I'm getting there. So I'm going to show you the FY21. This is the year-end financials from this past year. And I should get it right here. And then I can share the screen. And here we go. You see it? Yay. Everyone, oh, here, I'm
No.
sorry.
It
Now
looks
you
like
do.
you need to open it.
I just did, but
We see the folder you have it saved in. I think you're sharing the Windows Explorer rather than the document.
okay, hold on. Here we go. See, it did it again. It's here we go. How's that?
There it is.
Good.
Okay, so
Well done.
I'm gonna go to our expenses because all of this stuff is very audit, CPR friendly, but this is how we ended the year. And I'll just explain, I sent it all to you. There's a variance memo, which is if you have spent over or under $500 or more, or 25% of what you had budgeted, it requires a comment. So the CA annual charge, we show that we had less revenue than anticipated, and that is because we had the contingency fund from last year, which we had to pay out of, what came out of it, which was $10,121, less our anticipated excess cash for this year, if they do want that 20%, which would be $52,038. So that left us with that. So you have to subtract that from our annual charge. Go figure. Requiring benefits, everything for the most part, except for donations and furnishings, were under budget. And for staff salaries, we went to a bare bones budget for most years. And from the bare bones, we actually then were down a staff member for most of the year that I had included. So we had, spent much less in salaries, spent much less in almost every category because we were not in the building. We worked, we had less staff, and we didn't have all of the expenses that come along with maintaining our building and pretty much 3 other neighborhood centers. One was used pretty fully, but that accounts for all of that. Insurance, I think that had to do with less rentals and rental insurance that we would get up front and pay back, because those are pretty constant. We spent more on printing that is strictly related to the election printing that we did. Hard to budget because their prices went up. Contributions is the extra money that the board had decided to spend on the schools, and furnishing and fixtures, the same thing. So anyway, that left us, after all of the calculations, with a 20% over our budget of $52,000, that if, under our current management contract, we would be giving back to CA unless they waive it. Now, the thing is, next year's budget that you all voted on and passed actually shows about a $51,000 shortfall, because we are fully operational yet not fully rented yet. And there's actually, just today, I had a walkthrough with CA, and there's maintenance and repair things that have been put off for a long time on old buildings that we're going to have to pay for a chunk of things to maintain the buildings from our end. So that's where we are. I mean, we spent less this year, and I will tell you, I don't know all the villages, but everyone had different philosophies last year. Some paid staff that weren't working and used their salaries. Others, we had staff working, they got paid. The other staff from the very start of COVID knew that they wouldn't be working. And so most of them, if they chose, got unemployment. We all looked at last year different. So I don't think we have any apologies to anyone for having $52,000 last year in excess cash. It does seem like a lot, but again, next year, now that we're all back in the building, I can tell you it is not going to be that same scenario. We'll be okay because, we do have a reserve, but that's where we ended up. These are just all prepaid adjustments and expenses to our balance sheet. So anyone have questions?
Just a comment, Sandy, in a year that started with us not knowing what was going to happen, when we might open up, if we might open up, everything. If the cap doesn't get waived, I would much rather be in the position of writing a $50-some thousand check to CA than be in the position of saying, oh gosh, why did we spend all that? If only we had known then what we know now.
Oh, yeah. I think we did the prudent thing. I think we were very generous to our schools, but to a limit. I don't think anything that we did was out of bounds. I think that we were prudent in all our expenses. So no, I feel good about it. So what the board needs to do, if you don't have questions, is vote to hopefully accept the financials, and then CA gets our financial report. They have a draft because they wanted to see everyone's, and they know it wasn't voted on, our bottom lines, before the board meets in like 2 weeks.
I move that we approve it.
I second.
All right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 500.
Okay, Jonathan, and I'll be sending it to you to sign.
Yay, I can, if you're going to be in the building at some point, I can stop down this week.
Yeah, I'll be there Thursday.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, or I can electronically sign it, whatever you prefer, but
Yeah.
I can come down.
It's just so much fun.
Or I just come up.
Whatever.
The other barn is north of my house, isn't
We'll
it?
figure
Up,
it out.
down, whatever.
So my
I'm
other thing,
directionally challenged.
I don't know north and south on that street either. The other thing is, yesterday someone from CA came because they're looking at the feasibility of a second floor restroom. And he actually had said they wanted, and behind me, there's 3 windows. It's a little different, but the silo's over here, but pretend the silo is on behind to the left on the wall. They want to build the bathroom, and they think now that it really can only fit 1 stall. And I agree. It's like a big handicap restroom where the current chair closet is, where the sound system is in that area. Yeah. Huh. And then that would take away all of our storage for all of our chairs and tables. So to accommodate storage, they would have to kind of build out in when you walk in the silo, right to your left, between that wall between the silo door and the closet door, it's 18 feet across, and they'd have to build it out about 10 feet into the room to accommodate the size closet that we need. So our capacity would probably go from 200, which we have now, to about 160. So we'd lose about 40 guests per rental for the bathroom. And that had, I mean, this guy, John McHugh from CA was there both yesterday and today, and I met with him, and that's basically the only place they could put a closet, because anywhere else in the room and at the other end of the room, there's all their ventilation systems and everything else. So we'd get a bathroom, and then we'd have a huge 10-foot wall when you walk in the silo, 18 feet across, with 2 sets of double doors to be a closet to accommodate tables and chairs. So
What do you think about that?
me, it's a shame that that has to be done to get a bathroom, though I know we really would have wanted a bathroom there. It'll change the look of the room. It will definitely change the look of the room. You won't walk in and see this beautiful big loft. You will see a 10-foot wall, and then you get past it, and you know, it'll change it. And it just will. Bill?
Ugh.
That addition assumes no change in the overall outer structure of the whole building. Okay, that's a cheap way to provide a bathroom, and I understand it. To me, it really severely compromises the beauty and the desirability of the rental space. Now, this is a much more high-priced second floor restroom, but put a building addition on, a 2-story building addition, and put your bathroom there, it leaves everything else the same. Is it much more expensive? You bet. But to me, it's a much better solution. This is simply trying to shoehorn in something that's needed, but there's some real negative unintended consequences to do that. And personally, I'd like to see CA explore this option that they've come up with and the price of that, and a second option, which would be build a 2-story addition on to the outside of the building somewhere and see what that would cost, and see if, hey, how far in the future that bigger addition could be done. Because we're really going to compromise the rental space otherwise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm thrilled with this idea. The other thing I was thinking was, and it's been a while, so I need to look at the space, but at the other end, when you go out the back entrance, to the right is the elevator, in front of you are the stairs. Isn't there dead space to the left? Could that be used for anything?
Well, we looked there, it's where there's chair cages. It's not that big. And then if you wanted to build into the room at that end, it's where all of the ductwork and ventilation system is. So the area on the other side of the elevator is not that big. There's 4 big chair cages where we keep half of our chairs right now.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the thing. I haven't been back there in a while, and with the cages, it's hard to tell how big it is anyway. So I wasn't sure, but it just felt like space that isn't really that well used right now, but maybe it wouldn't be sufficient.
Yeah, and he didn't think it would.
Yeah, I'd like to see some alternatives put forward. I think this is about the lousiest solution to the problem that I can kind of think of. I mean, we lose, what, 25% of our space? I mean, if we go from 200 to 160, that's extreme. And we make the remaining space less attractive. I mean, I'm not seeing the joy here.
this feels like the kind of solution someone comes up with to make us say we don't want that anymore.
Oh, no, guys.
I'm not saying it is, I'm saying it
Let's
feels
not-
like it.
Let's
Or
not.
or at the very least to say, don't bother me anymore. Here's the best I can do. That
Okay, well, we'll work on that. But Sandy, when the middle of the upstairs barn, that's a way to get in and out. There's a stairway there. Is there any space there? That's where I always assumed the restroom
We
would be.
looked there. The ceiling is very low, it's very narrow, and no, he didn't think at all that was viable. They'd have to do a whole lot of structural stuff to get back there, and then it's not even big enough. But he looked there. They've looked there.
Okay, and all right. So what was the guy's name?
He's John McHugh. He works for CA Construction. He works with Dennis.
I mean, I know that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Well,
And they had already drawn plans apparently, because he had all the plans, which we didn't know. And it was for 2 restroom stalls. And he's like, that'll never fit. And he's like, I don't know how they drew that up. And it also did not have accommodations for storage. So they didn't account for storage in their restroom plans. I'm sorry.
I think it's back to the drawing board here.
Yeah,
I just have to mute.
I'd be willing to go up to the building myself first and look at possibilities. And then when CA visits, to go with them and ask about this, that, and the other thing. Because I think trying to shoehorn in restrooms in the existing structure is a lose-lose. I think you're going to need to build onto the outside of the existing structure, a 2-story addition to make it happen. Right. Is it going to cost more? You bet. Will it make the facility much nicer? You bet. Is it going to take longer? You bet. But what we've been offered, I'd vote no on.
okay. Well, let me get Lakey and Dennis involved. I'm sure they are. I mean, Dennis is, but let me just find out what's going on. And Bill, you want to be there?
I would like to be there because I know.
Sandy, I assumed, yeah.
Yeah, I assume Sandy always.
Yeah,
I'll meet you down there too if I'm available whenever you can set it up.
Yeah,
okay.
I could do that as well. I think this is a beautiful space and I think it's very important that we preserve it. I mean, I don't want to lose it for this, bad plan. So.
Well, but on the other hand, I frankly think we're bloody lucky that we're able to rent it without a bathroom upstairs.
It's not a problem. It's not a problem.
But we keep
The
getting there.
first thing we tell people when they look in the building.
Yeah, okay. Well, they do have the elevator there that if somebody has a disability, they can use that to get down, but then they got to go all through the bottom.
We tell them everything. We don't want to rent. If someone said I'm having an 80th birthday party and it's all elderly, we would dissuade them from thinking that's an option. Because not every rental in that building is good. And we immediately tell them, and when their guests come in for a party, actually, we tell them to have their guests use the restroom if they're handicapped before they even go upstairs. But people still love the building.
Oh, no. I'm just saying we're lucky that we get the number of rentals considering there's nothing.
Yeah, because it looks like it does. Now, if you
It's
took away,
it's a beautiful building. I mean,
it would cut into that look.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of facilities are really easy access bathrooms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they look like catering halls. They don't look like the other ones.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll commit to getting something where the board members that want to be there, Warren, John, Jonathan, Bill, Sandy, we'll work it with the appropriate staff, but I don't mean to downplay John, but a higher level staff person there as well, so that they can hear the concerns. And then we'll come back to you guys with what CA staff thinks is workable, and you either like it or you don't like it. And maybe we can do something, maybe we can't. Maybe we can get a walkway to the teen center, youth and teen center that has bathrooms upstairs. No, okay, never mind. Never mind.
I didn't know they had bathrooms upstairs.
They don't? They
I
just
don't
have
think so.
upstairs too? Okay. Well, they got plenty of room for bathrooms over there, let me tell you. I had a lot of meetings in that place. Okay, all right, thanks. I will work on it. But I'd like to get it done soon because we're going to be dealing with the budget. And if it's going to be any chance of being a budget item, we've got to move on it. So
The next thing is camp started at Stevens Forest, and Jessica is running an amazing camp. Today I had a walkthrough of all the buildings with CA, and we got there and we had to put our masks on. We had our temperature taken before we could even, I can't get it. Before we could even go inside, and all the kids had masks. I mean, she's an amazing camp director. I'm sorry, my mother just keeps calling. And then Dave Smith is here. He is the new chair of our RAC because Mike Vaughn started as our covenant advisor. So yay for David Smith. We can't see you, but we're thanking you. You see us, David. And CA does have a camp at the teen center and summer camp. And we're just watching it because they use the beautiful courtyard as their playground, even though we have big concerns with that. But we're just watching it. I don't want hard balls thrown around there. We don't want them in the beautiful flower beds. We've asked if they could go behind the camp, but they said the parents were told they'd be in a fenced-in area. So we've kind of laid out the do's and don'ts, but we're watching. I hope that it works out. It's not quite a playground, but anyway, that's my report. That's it.
Thanks, Sandy. There's an abandoned building next door they can play in. I don't think Cedar would notice.
Yeah, I think we want to keep the kids out of the plantings.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
I get killed in the second chance. Come on, John. It's been child abuse.
Any questions?
And don't
for
let them use
Sandy?
those bathrooms, right?
Any questions for Sandy? All right, committee reports. So we have education and architecture. So, I get to do an education report. So, as you know, the focus of tonight's education meeting was on preparation for our visit with the Board of Education members visiting us at our board meeting on the 13th. And, I completely agree with everything that was said at our last meeting, that there is no need to spend time on the 13th talking about what we want. They know what we want. How many times have we given testimony about what we want when it comes to Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills High? So, after over the past couple of weeks, I was reflecting on our meeting, and what I decided to do was, as they popped into my head, I was keeping a running list of questions that I thought we should ask of these Board of Education members when they come to the board meeting. And I think that really the format should be, Oakland Mills has concerns, Oakland Mills, what Oakland Mills wants. Now, here are our questions. Here are our questions about, what's the logic behind us not getting what we want. So I ran these by the attendees at the Education Committee tonight. I did not send them to the board in advance because the Education Committee happens right before the board meeting, but I do have a draft and I'm ready to click send right after I read these off to you. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read the questions I came up with, listen to them, give me your thoughts, let me know if there are other things you think we should add to the list. I'll also send it via email so you can send things back to me. And, if we're all in agreement, that would be the plan for the 13th. Basically, we have them here with us. Let's start asking them some of the tough questions. So here's what I have, and these are in no particular order other than I wrote them down as they came into my head up to about 5 minutes before the Education Committee met tonight. So first question, although not first, there's a new high school under construction, plans for a 14th high school, and plans for additional elementary schools. Meanwhile, the system cannot keep up with maintenance and renovations on existing facilities. What is the plan to maintain an even larger footprint of facilities if you can't maintain what you have now? Second, Oakland Mills High is not in the long-term plan because it does not need capacity. However, the system needs capacity to the point that there is a high school under construction, a high school under expansion, and a 14th high school in the plan. Why are capacity needs determined by the current attendance area projections for each school? Why hasn't the superintendent and the Board of Education used current facilities to their maximum capacity? Next one, the 2021 feasibility study now recommends that Thomas, in addition to Thomas Viaduct Middle School, a very new school, in lieu of expansion of Oakland Mills Middle School. Knowing the prioritization of capacity projects over other projects, how will you address the need for renovations at Oakland Mills Middle School if it will not continue to be a capacity project? Why isn't the superintendent and the Board of Education looking to Oakland Mills Middle School during redistricting as a potential recipient of more students? Next one, most land available for development within Howard County has been developed. The 14th high school will likely require elimination of parkland. Why is the school system in the business of land acquisition when it cannot afford to maintain properties it already owns? Next one, there has been a history of resistance when there is talk of redistricting out of more crowded schools and into Oakland Mills schools. Imagine Oakland Mills High School as a 60-year-old building that has never undergone systemic renovation. This is how old it will be at the end of the current long-term plan, which doesn't include OMHS. Why should Howard County taxpayers want to send their children to such a building when it is surrounded by newer renovated buildings? Next one, is there a long-term plan for OMMS and OMHS? HCPSS has demolished and rebuilt parts or all of facilities before they reach the age that OMMS and OMHS are approaching. Examples include Wild Lake High, Wild Lake Middle, Mount Hebron High, Talbot Springs Elementary, and the current partial demolition and reconstruction of Hammond High. Is there a plan for OMMS and OMHS, or will they be deferred until they are no longer salvageable? If they are deferred that long, what is the solution given the lack of land relative to the other campuses? In the budget process, the school system will not get what it does not ask for. Why isn't the school system asking for investment in Oakland Mills High School? Next one, the Howard County Public School System is required to provide an education to any children residing within the county. Nothing requires where it will be provided, just that it will be provided. Will you commit to investing in the infrastructure you already own before supporting any additional land acquisition for the purpose of new construction? And the last one I had was two schools, one with a 100% feeder to the other, those two schools being Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills High, account for 20% of all deferred maintenance across the system. These schools serve the highest proportions of lower income students in the county. How does this align with the school system's focus on equity? There was one other suggestion for a question at the Education Committee from Marcelino. He was aware of some kind of a surplus fund that the Board of Education should be using in certain ways, but it was unclear exactly how large that fund was. And then he thought that might actually be an operating budget fund, not a capital budget fund. So I asked him if he could get a little more information on that. And if it's a relevant question to capital investment, we'll add that on. But right now, we're not sure whether that would be an appropriate question for the July 13th meeting. So that's what I have so far after, putting my thoughts down and having discussions at the Education Committee meeting earlier tonight. And now I'd like to hear your reactions. I see Lynn with a hand and then Warren.
Yeah, so one thing is that as I recall at our last meeting, one of the residents who has participated, I wrote down something called strategic call to action, which is something that can be harnessed in terms of getting other sort of support for the things we're asking for, maybe from teachers. I don't know exactly how that works, but I'd like to explore that a little bit. And then my second question is that with the list of questions that you have, is there going to be time dedicated to questions from residents who maybe could be joining the meeting as Zoom on our Zoom meeting, that will be joining us without having submitted questions beforehand? Or are you asking for questions to be submitted to you and then be asked during the meeting?
No, actually, I'm hoping that we will have a number of residents attending, and I'm hoping that they will want to speak out at resident speak out on their feelings about the condition of those buildings and the deferred investment.
Speaking out is a little bit different than asking a targeted question. So, if at the beginning of the meeting, they're speaking out about what they think about the schools, that's one thing and valuable. But if they have specific questions for board members.
So let me think about that. I would like to ensure that our board members have the priority in the conversation with the Board of Education members for the time we have them. I don't want it. This is not the right way to describe it because I don't think this is what it would be, but I can't think of a better way of describing it. I don't want it to turn into a free for all where we start kind of wandering off scope and the board doesn't get to do its business with the Board of Education members we invited in.
Right. Well, that's why I was going to suggest that we ask people who are planning to submit questions to submit them maybe at the beginning of the meeting during speak out or as they assemble, and then they could be addressed. So it's not sort of a free for all. And also we don't want one group of people kind of hijacking the conversation.
Yeah. We can do that. I mean, the other thing we can do is if we like this, after we've looked at them, if we like this set of questions I've come out with, we can put those out publicly, to the community as some of the guiding questions for the session and ask for their input of, other things they want to ask and just add it to the list.
That's good. That would be a good
Okay.
one.
I like that too.
Sylvia has a question.
Oh, I can't. Oh,
Sylvia has a question.
Hi, it was me that
Hi.
Lynn's referring to that brought up the strategic call to action. So I was just I can email you the link to that webpage so that you can have what I was referencing, because it talks about like an equitable climate for learning, conducive to learning, something like that. So I just wanted to share.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually on the page, and I'm glad you mentioned it at the last meeting, and I'm glad Lynn reminded me, because that last question I asked, where I said, how does this align with the school system's focus on equity? That was actually where I meant to include the strategic call to action, except it didn't register until you and Lynn just mentioned it again tonight. So I'm actually on the site, and I'm going to revise that question based on some language on the site.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Jonathan.
Warren?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Lynn. Her comments are really good. I think all your questions are good. I just think it's a lot of questions, and I think I can't imagine us addressing all of those questions and then letting other people. I think maybe they need to be joined together, some of the redundant questions, that kind of thing. I think they're all really, each one stands alone pretty well, but I think maybe they overlap in some cases.
Yeah, I think they definitely do. And I need to go back and start ordering them and combining things, because like, I know there are 2 or 3 questions that are that deal with, why are you acquiring land when you have facilities you're not taking care of now? I think all of those can be combined into one question. Why aren't you filling the facilities you have? Why are you building new stuff when you can't take care of the old? Why are you buying land when you already own land and you can't take care of what's on the land? That's all one, that's all one theme.
Exactly.
And they just need to be combined. Yeah. Anything else? Bill?
Jonathan, real quick, I think those are some questions, like Warren said, kind of combine and massage and get them real direct. My concern is that the school board and superintendent still aren't going to move off the dime, because there are other issues that they have with Oakland Mills that they're not going to talk about. And it gets down to, why don't you like Oakland Mills? And what are you going to tell the news media when the health department shuts the 2 schools? Okay. I mean, that's where it's all headed. Now, I won't say that to them. I won't really ask any questions other than the one, maybe, of, you got Wild Lake Middle and High School all new, Oakland Mills all old. What's wrong with that picture? My concern is that logic isn't going to move them off the dime. as my father's told me as a little kid, and he told me often, sometimes you have to shame people into doing the right thing. And I think that's what it will take eventually. I don't feel that that's a good role for the village board to take, okay? But I don't see any significant change from the board and from the superintendent. I'm not sure what it will take to get them there, and it might take outside groups embarrassing them to get them to do the right thing. That's just my personal opinion. And I will be very quiet with the board members.
Bill, honestly, I tend to agree with you. And on top of that, you know, the folks who are coming on the 13th are probably, you know, among those who are most sympathetic to our plight. But, you know, I do think we need to hear from members, you know, about why this is happening. I do think we need to remind them that the superintendent and his staff work for them. They don't work for him, you know. So yes, the superintendent and his office of planning can keep deferring things and ignoring Oakland Mills and everything. They can tell him not to do that. They can tell him to take his plan and go rework that, because they are not going to vote to, you know, continue buying stuff they can't afford when they're not taking care of the stuff they already have. So, you know, I do think they need to be pushed and challenged on that, because they don't have to take what the superintendent gives them. And they don't have to take what the Office of School Planning gives them. And we know that the Office of School Planning has screwed up big time in the past. We learned that, what was that, 4 years ago, the redistricting before last, where they had every piece of data on Oakland Mills schools totally wrong. Well, how do you plan your school system when you can't get your data right? And, you know, how do you plan your school system when it seems your only plan is to keep building new stuff and worrying about the old stuff later because a magical pot of money is going to be dumped on you 50 years from now? You know, yeah, right. So yeah, I do tend to agree with you, but again, it's, you know, I think we need to start with them, and I think we need to start asking questions and seeing what the answers are before giving testimony, because then we can, what I'm thinking is we can take those answers and use them. Because if they're not satisfactory answers, then, you know, we can use them in other venues to say, this is what our Board of Education thinks of Oakland Mills, even if it's, you know, going to the press or whatever. If they are good answers, you know, then we can at least start holding them to those. Okay, you know, on July 13th, on the record, we have the recording. You said you would not support another land acquisition until Oakland Mills gets taken care of. You have a vote coming up on, you know, December the whatever. You know, we're going to watch. We're going to hold you to that. Rebecca?
Yeah, I like your letter. I like your points. I know you are feeling very frustrated. And so all those rhetorical questions of why are you not taking care of this when you're doing other things, they kind of come across a little snarky. Maybe it could be reworded of, you know, we are concerned that you're spreading yourself too thin and not taking care of, you know, instead of asking the rhetorical questions that sound like a gotcha point, rewording it into, because we want a nice dialogue. We're not, it's not us against them. We want them on our side. I know that's how you're feeling because you're very frustrated about it.
I can try, but they're also sort of intentionally written that way because we've been nice plenty of times in the past, and all it's gotten us is a lot of nothing. And it's also snarky because I want others to see, others in Oakland Mills and and even others beyond Oakland Mills to see this is the reality of what's happening. You know, as I feel that others in Howard County, as Howard County taxpayers, should be looking at this and going, wait a minute, our school system is seriously acquiring land and building new buildings instead of taking care of the ones they have and using them to their full capacity. You know, this is an issue beyond Oakland Mills. So you're right that it is a bit snarky, because it is a bit
That's how you're
snarky.
feeling.
But I'll see what I'll see what I can do with it, because look, I mean, in a private conversation with one Board of Education member, I mean, I actually said, what's it going to take? Do you really want to see the day where instead of OMCA standing up and being polite and, asking for things nicely and supporting the school system in its budget requests, we actually get up in front of, the county or even the state and say, we oppose the capital budget and we don't think you should give the school system anything because they're not good stewards of our of our tax dollars, because I mean, that's ultimately what it could come to. I think, by and large, we are supportive of the school system. When we give testimony, we don't ask to take from anyone else. We don't tell them, not to help other communities. We just ask for support for our community. But if the outcome is going to, keep being that they just keep taking care of everyone else and Oakland Mills gets forgotten, then eventually the tone of our testimony may have to change. And we may be there saying, you know what, don't fund this. Don't fund this capital plan for the school system because it's inequitable, it's unfair, it's irresponsible, and, they're guilty of neglect. And, that story is not getting out, but we're here to tell you that story. I don't want to do that, but how long, I guess my question is, how long do we wait before we get snarky? Because, Oakland Mills High is 50 years old the year after next. It's not in the long-term plan, which means it's guaranteed to be 60 years old before there's even a chance of it getting touched. There's no other school in Howard County that has ever gone 60 years without a systemic renovation. There are schools newer than Oakland Mills High on the list right now getting done. There are new schools that are going to be built that they're going to have to maintain. So, I guess my question is, at what point do we get snarky if we're not there yet?
Well, I totally agree. And I understand what you're saying. So maybe snarky, exactly as you read it, is good for a letter in the newspaper. But having invited these school board members here to talk to us for the first time since I've been on the board, it's kind of big, right? So we don't want them being like, well, never doing that again. We want them to want to be here talking with us and coming with solutions. So maybe that intimate conversation with us is not that time.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. All right, I'll see what I'll see what I can do with it.
More bees with honey.
Yeah, I mean, sadly though, unfortunately, all we've gotten so far is stung. But I see your point. Yes.
Good metaphor.
I was going to say the same thing, John. Okay.
Lynn and then Ginny.
I thank you, Rebecca. I agree. I think that you started off, Jonathan, saying we don't want to tell them all the things, our litany of complaints about what's happening with the schools, and then go right ahead and give the litany of complaints. So I think we do want to engage in a conversation geared to solutions rather than, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? And how can you justify? And maybe that comes later. But for right now, I think we want this to be, I have never met these school board members. And so, starting off with here, we know there are problems, there are problems, you've heard them, and what are your ideas about how to change things in Oakland Mills. But having said that, I have kind of a thing that I would like them to explain, and that is, why do we have such a churn in the administration where we have, it seems like we have new principals every year or every other year. And I don't see that happening in all the other schools. Obviously there are administrative changes throughout the school system, but ours, it's over and over and over. So I'd like a question about that.
So that may be.
That's a little snarky.
No, I wasn't going to say that snarky. I was going to say that might be a subject for another meeting. Because remember, this one was supposed to be focused on the capital investment. The subject of this was the capital investment. However, I will say I had a conversation with a member of the Board of Education after the Oakland Mills Middle School announcement. And that member was going to be having a meeting with the superintendent, I think later that day, to raise those very questions. Basically, what's going on with the staffing at some of these schools? Are you using them as training grounds? Are you not putting the right people there and they're not working out? What's going on, and how are you evaluating who should be in what school so that there can be some stability? So
yeah, it seems almost as if working in Oakland Mills is sort of a hardship duty, and that is, if you hang in for a year or 2 years, then you get Centennial, or you get River Hill, or you get whatever. So
it's actually an issue that I've already talked to a member about, and that member had already scheduled a meeting with the superintendent. So I'll try to get what the and that member happens to be on vacation, so I didn't want to bother them on vacation, but I'll get what the outcome of what that was and share it with you, because we might already have the answer to that one and we just don't know it yet.
okay, thank you.
But if we don't feel we have the answer, I do think that's something that needs to be raised, but it probably needs to be raised within the context of another meeting, where we're not talking about the capital budget and we're talking about the operations.
Right, but having such a turnover in administration that you also need the principals and the staff of the school to be behind us. So when we're asking for getting around all the deferred maintenance and putting investments into the school, and when it's somebody who's just been in there, I mean, we all know how long it takes to take on a new job. You don't even know what you're doing, really, the lay of the land for the first 6 months, and then you're out into another school.
Now you've just tied it in. Now I can, okay, now I see where you're going. Now I can work it in. Because if you keep having leadership turnover, who advocates for those buildings?
Right.
Who's there long enough to raise the issues? Okay.
Yeah, who advocates for the school at all?
So I retract everything I just said to you, and I will work that in. I thought it was more about just a staffing issue, not the who advocates. Okay.
Excellent argument, Lynn. Excellent argument.
A prime example is having stability at Talbot Springs and what Nancy Thompson did to make sure we got that school.
She's been the principal there ever since I can remember.
I mean, but if she wasn't, might not have a school.
Because why would you put all that effort in if you're not going to be there next year?
Yeah. Now I will say, I didn't intend for this line of questions to be raising the usual grievances, because notice I'm not talking about the age of the HVAC in Oakland Mills High, or the missing bricks at Oakland Mills Middle, or anything like that. What I was trying to go for here was just the and maybe even this is snarky, but basically, where's your responsibility to our community and to the kids in our community? You have a long history of avoiding putting kids in our schools, and then you kind of slap us in the face by saying, well, we don't need to work on your schools because they don't need capacity. Well, they don't need capacity because you won't put kids in them. And I get we have to be careful because we want people to want to come back, but at the same time, I'm still sort of stuck on, so when do we call them out on this? Because it's basically, I'm not saying it's intentional, but if you step back and look at it, it looks like a big setup, right? We won't populate your schools because your schools are overpopulated. We won't renovate your schools. Therefore, we won't populate your schools because there are no condition to take on more kids. Oh, they don't need capacity, so we won't renovate them. Meanwhile, we'll build an addition onto a middle school that's just a few years old. We'll build 3 new elementary schools. We'll build 2 new high schools. We'll renovate 2 others. And Oakland Mills just sits there in the middle of things, chugging along.
I disagree with you, Jonathan. I think it is deliberate. And I don't think that it just is a coincidence that year after year after year.
Well, I wouldn't want to accuse the 3 people joining us. I wouldn't want to go that far because they haven't been there that long, right?
No, I wouldn't say that to them.
But the Board of Education as an entity, yes, I agree with you. And that's where I go back to my point of how many years have to go by before we get snarky? Because this kind of stuff has been going on for at least 20 years.
Well, I think that's where the strategic call to action can come in.
Okay.
It is an equity. I mean, basically, you're talking about an equity issue.
Yes.
Other schools get it. Other places in
Howard
County get it. We don't.
Yeah.
Year after year after year, decade after decade.
Yeah.
So.
All right, I'll see what I can do with them. Oh, Ginny's waving. Hi, Ginny.
I was just trying. Yeah. I figured one hand wasn't doing it. I thought I'd use all of them. No, I'm kidding. Two things. One is a follow-up on what you were just saying. And Lynn, I think part of the problem was, and Bill maybe will agree with me on this, is previous boards did not take the education issue seriously. I remember getting in a big argument with one of the board members when I was co-chair of the Community Vibrancy Committee, you know, and a bunch of us really said, you've got to consider education. And this was 15, 20 years ago. You've got to think about education because it's having an impact on our schools, and that will have an impact on our neighborhoods, et cetera. No, that's what the Board of Education is there for. So we got in a real fight. I quit being co-chair of that committee. I just had it at that point after spending hours every week on that, trying to revitalize Oakland Mills. So I just had it. If that's the attitude of the board. So that's what the school board was not used to, aggressive Oakland Mills board that really wants to do something and recognizes there are problems with education and wants to see a change. So Jonathan, in your committee, this is the big change in what was happening before. And I think that may be part of it. So now they got to take us seriously. And in terms of taking us seriously, though, again, I'm wondering about whether we can get the county council member there or his representative, a representative from Calvin's office there and from the delegation, all play a significant role in funding the Board of Education. And I know they'll say they set the priorities, we don't, but you know, come on. So it would be good to see them there and having support and voicing support for what we're saying. Just a political consideration.
I agree. Warren?
So I think that I've been thinking about everything that Lynn and Rebecca and Jenny have said, and I think maybe the question should be more solution-based. Like you might have your little snarky or have a little bit of a comment in the beginning, like say the principals. You could say, you know, mention that we've had principals turnover in all our schools and they're having difficulty advocating for the building, you know, renovations. Can you commit to keeping our, you know, keeping a principal in for more than 2 years, you know, just something like that, and mention that about renovating our schools and don't let them build a new school until we renovate our existing schools, and just make them more solution-based as opposed to kind of running over the same issues we've talked about over and over and over again. So we're asking for things that we want and try to get a commitment from these three people.
So I'm kind of looking at the questions now as I'm taking your feedback, and I'm starting to rephrase them to make them a little bit, I guess, less snarky and more partnership sounding. So, you know, I'm looking at them, I'm starting to rephrase, like, you know, the question about capacity, I'm thinking of ending that one now, instead of what are you going to do, but, you know, how can we ensure that facilities are used to their maximum capacity? You know, how, you know, in the thing about not being able to keep up with maintenance and stuff, you know, I'm throwing them a bone. I'm saying, unfortunately, the school system doesn't have the funds to keep up with maintenance and renovations at existing facilities. So what could our long-term plan be to address this, you know, to show that we do want to be partners in this? But, you know, I also do think it's important to point out kind of the folly of their ways. I mean, what they're doing is just not sustainable, because they can't maintain what they have. So, you know, it's never a good plan to add more when you can't maintain what you have. So that's not sustainable. The other thing that's not sustainable is they can't keep deferring certain facilities because they're just going to fall apart. You know, I mean, they can only they can only go so long. I mean, when you're up to $111 million in deferred maintenance, that is the cost of a whole new, where'd my video go? That is the cost of a whole new school. So how long is any of this sustainable? That's really what I want to ask them. And I know they're in this kind of, at times impossible feeling situation because they don't have a pot of money either. But I also do want to remind them that you are the Board of Education. You don't get what you don't ask for. And if you ask for things with wacko priorities, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to get wacko solutions.
So you brought up the $111 million. That's got to be in your dialogue somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just a powerful message.
Yeah, good, very good point.
I also like the idea of not, when you start up with things like, why do you do this? Why do you do that? To kind of rephrase that so it doesn't sound like that automatically puts people on the defensive. Why are you doing?
Yeah.
And to phrase it in a way that is not, it doesn't sound like an attack, even though it can be a soft attack and not such a direct attack.
Yeah. Well, and also that's why I'm trying to I'm going to try to make the question sound more solution oriented and sort of put we in. We're all partners in this.
Yeah.
How do we fix this? How do we do this? But if someone said to me, well, just offer them the solutions. I mean, my solution would be very simple. Stop building new buildings, fix up the buildings you have, and then worry about the new buildings. That's my solution. But we've said that. There's no sense saying that again. So I think we do need to ask them the questions because honestly, I think they need to start asking themselves the questions. I mean, I also begin to wonder whether all of this has just been on autopilot so long that this is just what we do, right? The county grows, so we build a new school. The county grows some more, so we build another new school. Then that new school becomes the jewel of the county. We don't want that to fall into disrepair, so we keep that school up. And schools like Oakland Mills, which sort of popped up in the middle, right? It's not old enough to be historic. It's not new enough to be a jewel. So it just sort of gets forgotten. It's the middle child. That's one of the things we talked about at the Education Committee. We think Oakland Mills was the 5th Howard County High School. So it's not one of the golden oldies, and it's also not one of the nice new ones. It's that forgotten one in the middle. It's number 5 out of 12 right now.
Yeah, I think instead, and not for us to give them the solution, but to ask them, this is that we're aware of these problems and what are your solutions?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than why aren't you doing anything?
Yeah.
And also we have to recognize and acknowledge that part of this is just based on the development of Howard County and priorities and given to new development and all kinds of other issues that go way beyond or that don't go beyond, but that are very, very connected to what happens with the schools. So, but that's not something that they're going to be responding to us on the 13th.
Right. I'm just taking a few notes here. All right. Anything else? I know we're going way over. We've gone over on everything tonight. All right. Thank you. I truly appreciate the feedback. I've taken a few notes in some of these questions to consolidate and de-snarky them a bit, make them sound, like I said, I think just changing some pronouns to we even softens that a bit, because then it's, we want to work with you. We're not just putting this whole thing on you. And I'll do some more work on it over the next day or so, and I'll circulate it, within the next couple of days. Because the other good thing is we have a solid 3 weeks between board meetings this time. So I managed to buy myself an extra week by lucking into it.
Good.
All right. Lynn, did you have an open architecture report, or do you just need the closed session at the end?
I just need to do the closed session.
All right, then I guess we're at the bulletin board. So Amy, anything from the office? Was that a shake your head no, right?
That was
okay. No. Sandy, anything? Sandy, you're talking on
I
mute.
know. Not that I haven't said already.
Okay. Who's here? Ginny?
No, thank you.
All right. Let's see, Rebecca?
Nope.
Okay, Warren?
Well, I didn't really give a rundown on public space, so I guess I can just do that real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't on the agenda. I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
for it.
so I can just mention it real quick. We had the bike cleanup. It was not well advertised, so there weren't that many people, but we did manage to clean it up well. Next lessons learned, next time we'll advertise it better. Sadly, there was the first bicycle death in Howard County happened a month ago at Tamar. It was a young boy riding with his friends, and he decided to go out in the middle of traffic in the wrong time. So it's Center Park and Columbia 100 now have bike lanes. That's like a big thing. They're in, next time you go in that area, you'll see that. And the Bland Area North playground has opened, and there is parking issues now. If you look at See Click Fix or Telhoco, you'll see that lots and lots of people are complaining about all the cars blocking the roads. So Howard County has actually put up big signs and cones to prevent people from parking in that area. That's about it.
All right, thanks, Warren.
Sure.
Lynn?
No,
Sorry, Lynn, I didn't hear you.
oh, no, I don't have anything additional.
Okay, Bill?
Nope.
All right. Well, actually, since I've been giving all the bad news about Oakland Mills, I'll be the one to give some good news in case you haven't heard. Congratulations to the Oakland Mills boys track and field team. They won the state championship over the weekend. They scored in 12 of the 18 events in which they participated. They claimed 10 medals. 7 of those medals were gold medals. So we once again have state champions here in Oakland Mills. So I think over the past 5 or 6 years, it's been track and field, basketball, and wrestling, if I'm not mistaken. And the county executive did a nice congratulations a day or two ago on his social media site. So job well done.
Can I add to that? For all of
Yes.
you that have been at the other barn, Judd Lincoln, who does all of our cleaning and setup, he's been there probably 30 or so years. His son is Judson Lincoln, which is one of the stars of the track team who has won all of the gold medals. So if you see Judd, it's his pride and joy. And so Judson Lincoln is Judd's son, our Judd.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right.
You'll see
So
him in the Olympics in a few years.
that would be great.
Wow.
So this concludes the open portion of our meeting. We're not officially adjourning the meeting. We do need to do a closed session to discuss an issue that needs to be discussed in closed session for legal reasons. When we come out of closed session, if anyone is still hanging around, I will announce the reason for the closed session and the outcome of the closed session. But for right now, or I guess, Sandy, you'll have to do this. Anyone who is not a member of the board, we're going to send you out to the waiting room. You're welcome to wait in the waiting room until we come out of closed session, so you can hear me say we're out of closed session, here's what we did, and the meeting's adjourned. Or if you don't want to wait around for that, have a very good evening, and thank you for attending.
That's so funny.
All right. Well, thank you to
They all
those
get
of
gold
you.
stars.
Thank
Wow,
you to
they-
those of you who stuck around. We have come out of our closed session at 9:24 p.m. The reason for the closed session was to discuss the 15-day notice and potential referral of a non-compliant property to the Columbia Association for potential joint legal action with OMCA. The board in closed session voted on that measure. and determined that we would send the letter. So that was the outcome of, that was the purpose of the session. That was the outcome of the session. And now we can adjourn the open session as well. So thank you very much. It's 9:25 and we're adjourned.